Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Johnson. I am a firefighter at Station 18 on the B shift. I have been assigned to Station 18 since 2002 when I got out of the academy, and I have been assigned to the ladder that entire time. Today I'm giving my class. My two sons are serving as my students today. Tanner and Griffin, they're helping me to video and also to be to the students in my class. So today we're going to be talking about vehicle extrication, and we're going to have three learning objectives. Our learning objectives are to go over initial actions on scene, how to make the car safe, and prepare for follow-on vehicle extrication. That is learning objective number one. The students will understand initial actions to be taken on scene. Learning objective number two is that the students will understand a basic B-post blowout cut series. And our learning objective number three is that the students will understand a dash lift. So those are our three learning objectives. So we're first going to talk about initial actions on scene, the things that we're going to do when we first get on scene to prepare the vehicle, to make it safe for us to do vehicle extrication and prepare the car for the cuts and spreads that we need to make. So we use an acronym STABS in the fire service, and the first S is for stabilize. We want to stabilize the car. That can be step chocks, that can be wheel chocks, cribbing. We want to make sure that the car is not going to move on us and that it is safe for us to begin our operations on the car. I would say that also includes putting the car in park. Oftentimes people will get in an accident and they're a little nervous and they forget to put the car in park. Shutting the car off, taking the keys out, I would include those items in stabilize. The T stands for trim. That is, we're talking about the trim, that plastic trim inside the car. We don't want to be making any blind cuts. So anywhere we think we need to cut or spread or move components of the car, we want to remove the trim on the inside of the car to expose any kind of hardened metal or airbag cylinders, airbags. We don't want to be making any blind cuts. So we want to expose that all by taking off the trim. The next one is airbags. I mentioned that a second ago. We want to make sure we know where airbags are, where airbag cylinders are. We don't want to be making any blind cuts or spreads without visualizing and knowing where the airbags are and airbag cylinders are. One thing of note is we're always told don't cut an airbag cylinder. And that is certainly true for our hydraulic tools, but if for whatever reason you needed to make a cut on the airbag cylinder, you could do that with a sawzall and a metal blade. That would be safe to do that. So kind of together with airbags is the battery. We want to cut the battery. There's also like some confusion about cutting the battery. Can the airbag still go off? Generally speaking, once you cut the battery, the power dumps from the airbag control module within a second or two, and then the airbags are not going to go off. So as long as you disconnect the battery, you should be safe on scene. And the second S stands for seat belts. Something we don't want to do for sure is we're trying to move a patient. We think that we can get out of the car, but they're still connected by their seat belt. Or we're trying to move a component of the car, move the B-post, and it's still, the seat belt is still connected. That is something that we should address initially on scene before we even move on to our cuts. So initial actions. After our initial actions, then we're going to move into the cuts that I was talking about, the B-post blowout and the dash lift. So for the B-post blowout, I'll just talk about one method. I'm talking about a car that's on all four wheels. it's very possible, of course, that a car could be on its side or on its roof. Just for the purposes of this class, we're going to talk about a car on all four wheels. So, B-post blowout. I've labeled our steps. I'm going to go over it. I'm going to just break it down into 3 steps. Steps 1, 2, and 3. So step 1, what we're gonna do is a vertical crush on the front and the rear doors. So a couple things to consider with that vertical crush. It's called a crush, but we're using the spreaders. One is that remember that your spreaders don't spread in a straight line. They're going to spread in an arc. They will come apart and spread in an arc. So you've got to raise up that handle of the spreaders to make sure that you catch the top of the window and the top of you want to catch the roof as well. So what will happen is when we do a vertical crush is that that will give us a gap here at the A-post, and it will also draw the door away from any passenger if there's any kind of intrusion. We're going to do that at the front, and then we're going to do it again at the back. And same thing, we're going to do that vertical crush. That's going to give us a gap at the C-post. So once we've done our crush, front door, back door, we've gapped at the A-post and at the C-post. Now we can move on to step 2. So step 2 is going to be, we're going to attack the front door at the hinge side, and the A-post, hinge side, and then we're going to attack the back door on the C-post or the handle side. You can spread there, you can cut, or you can use a combination of the two. But what we're going to do is separate the door from the hinge on the A-post side. We're going to separate the door at the C-post as well. So now we've gone through step 1, step 2, step 3 is now where we're going to separate the B-posts. First, we're going to cut the B-post at the top, and then we are going to cut at the bottom. So generally the B-post is going to be wider at the bottom, and you may take multiple cuts to cut through that B-post at the bottom. Once we have done that, we should be able to remove the entire assembly, front door, back door, and the B-post, move that from the car. Okay, so now we're going to transition. We've moved the door, front and back door, moved the B-post. Now we're going to transition. We're going to reassess if we can move this patient or not. Our patient may still be trapped, or they may be able to get out of the vehicle. You may have them trapped in some combination of the pedals, the dashboard, the steering wheel. Could be one of those, could be a combination of those things. And they could still be trapped. So if that is the case, we're going to move on to the dash lift. Move on to the dash lift. So again, I'm going to just go through one option here for the dash lift. There's so many possibilities. On any car, a car could be oriented many different ways. The patient could be in the car many different ways. We're just going to talk about dash lift, where the car is on 4 wheels. So again, the B-post blowout we made into 3 steps. The dash lift, we're also going to have 3 steps. So step 1 is we're going to make 2 relief cuts. We're going to make let me back up. Either at the end of your B-post blowout or prior to the dash lift, we need to remove the front quarter panel. We need to do that so that we can visualize the top rail and the strut tower. We need to move that out of the way. So our first relief cut will be at the top of the strut tower, behind the strut tower on the top rail. When I say behind the strut tower, closer to the driver. That's relief cut number 1. Relief cut number 2 is going to be at the top of the A-post. And we're going to make 2 cuts there. if we make one cut at the top of the A-post, the danger is you've cut it, and now when you go to lift, the ends of the A-post are still pushing against each other. So what we're going to do is make two cuts about 6 inches apart and physically remove a chunk of the A-post at the top, and that will avoid that problem when we get to the actual lift. Okay, so we've done our 2 relief cuts behind the strut tower, top of the A-post, and now we're going to move to down the A-post to the bottom of the A-post to the footwell down by the hinge that we can now see because we have removed that front door. So we're going to make 2 more cuts. Again, they're going to be about 6 inches apart. A good visual marker is that bottom hinge. That's an easy target. Kind of make one of your cuts above that bottom hinge, one of your cuts below that bottom hinge. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's 2 dotted lines. What is absolutely crucial with these relief cuts is that you get all the way to the firewall. That's another good reason to have that quarter panel, that front quarter panel out of the way. It makes it easier to visualize the firewall. So you'll see a seam. There's a corner. It's a weld or a tack weld, and you need to cut all the way to the firewall and then through that seam. Okay, so once we've done that, we have made our relief cuts on top and on the bottom. You're going to grab that chunk that you've between the relief cuts and move it to the side using your spreaders. And then the final step will be to lift the dash. And before we do that, we want to make sure we've got some kind of cribbing or stabilization underneath the rocker panel. We want to have a good base to push against with our spreaders. So make sure you've got some kind of stabilization under the rocker panel, under the base of that A-post before you start the lift. So once we've got all that in place, then we'll commence the lift. Spreaders will go in that relief cut, and since we've followed all those steps, made all our relief cuts, we should get a good lift. Of course, anything is possible. You may need to move. If you don't get good lift, you may need to move on to a dash roll or a dash slash. But again, for the purposes of this class, we're just going over the one method for the B-post blowout and one method for the dash lift. Okay, so just to review the learning objectives that we've gone over today, there were 3 of them. One is that the students become familiar with initial actions on scene, the STABS acronym, stabilize, trim, airbags, battery, and seatbelts. That's learning objective number 1. Learning objective number 2 is that the students become familiar with one method of the B-post blowout. And learning objective number 3 is that the students become familiar with one method of the dash lift. So now that I've gone through all those steps, does anybody have any questions?
What if the car's on the side?
That's a good question. The question was, what if the car is on its side? Like, how does that affect our operation? So for the class, we just went over a car on its wheels. But like I said earlier, our car could present many different ways. It could be on its side, it could be on its roof. There could be cars that are wedged together or cars up against a tree. You're gonna have to come up with different ways to attack the problem. Every situation is different, but one example would be a car on its side. It's much harder to access either set of doors. One set of doors is against the ground, the other set of doors is in the air. So generally speaking, a car on its side, once we've stabilized it, an easier route to take with a car on its side would be to take the roof. We could cut the posts ABC, just do a roof removal of a car on its side. That a lot of times would be just an easier route if a car is on its side. Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you all for your participation, and that's it. Have a good day.